On a day fourth of trial, the Manhattan federal courtroom was about to witness a showdown no one saw coming. 50 Cent, the man who'd been Diddy's rival for decades, was stepping into the ring, but not with a diss track or a social media post. This time, he was bringing something far more dangerous: the truth. Let's rewind a bit. 50 Cent had been keeping a close eye on Diddy's trial from the moment it started. Diddy was in custody, facing charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. The allegations were heavy: claims of coercion, abuse, and what prosecutors called freak-off parties, where Diddy allegedly manipulated and controlled those around him. One of the key voices in the trial was Cassie Ventura, Diddy's ex-girlfriend, who had already testified about the years of abuse she endured at his hands. Her words were chilling, but Diddy's legal team was working hard to discredit her, painting her as unreliable. 50 Cent, though, wasn't buying it. He'd been vocal about Diddy for years, calling him out on everything from his business dealings to his personal conduct. But this time, he wasn't just trolling. He had something real. A former Bad Boy Records employee, one of Diddy's own, had reached out to him weeks before the trial heated up. The employee, who'd worked closely with Diddy in the early 2000s, had been holding on to something explosive: a hidden audio recording from one of those infamous freak-off parties. The employee's voice was shaky when he first contacted 50 Cent. "I've got something you need to hear," he said, "but I'm scared, man. If Diddy finds out I'm talking, I'm done." 50 Cent didn't hesitate. "Send it to me," he replied. "I'll make sure it gets to the right people." The recording arrived in 50 Cent's inbox a few days later. He listened to it alone, his jaw tightening with every word. The audio was grainy but clear enough to make out Diddy's voice. He was barking orders, his tone cold and commanding, telling people what to do, who to be with, and how to act. It wasn't just a party, it was control, coercion, exactly what Cassie had described in her testimony. 50 Cent knew this could change the game. He sat on the recording for a while, weighing his options. He could leak it online, let the internet tear Diddy apart, but that wouldn't guarantee justice. No, this needed to be bigger. It needed to be in court, where Diddy couldn't hide. 50 Cent reached out to the prosecution, offering to testify as a witness. He told them about the recording, explaining how it backed up Cassie's story. The prosecutors were skeptical at first. 50 Cent wasn't exactly a neutral party, but they listened to the audio and realized it could be a game changer. Fast forward to the fourth day of the trial. Diddy was called to the stand to testify in his own defense. His legal team had prepped him well. He was calm, collected, ready to spin a narrative that painted him as a misunderstood mogul, a man who threw wild parties but never crossed the line into criminal behavior. The courtroom was packed, the tension thick as Diddy began to speak. "I've always been about empowering people," Diddy said, his voice steady. "These allegations, they're not who I am. I never forced anyone to do anything they didn't want to do. What Cassie said, it's not true. She's hurt, I get that, but she's twisting the past to fit a story that isn't real." The prosecutor wasn't buying it. She pressed him hard. "So you're saying Cassie Ventura's lying?" she asked. "You're saying the events she described, the freak-off parties, the coercion, the abuse, none of that happened?" Diddy didn't flinch. "I'm saying it's not what she's making it out to be. We had a relationship. It was complicated, sure, but I never hurt her, never forced her." The prosecutor nodded, stepping back. "No further questions at this time," she said, but she had a card up her sleeve. The judge looked over at the prosecution table. "Do you have any additional witnesses to call?" he asked. The prosecutor stood. "Yes, Your Honor. We'd like to call Curtis Jackson to the stand." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Curtis Jackson, better known as 50 Cent, was walking in, his face set in a hard line. He took the oath, his voice low but firm, and sat down. Diddy's legal team immediately objected. "Your Honor, this is a stunt," Diddy's lead attorney said. "Mr. Jackson has a well-documented history of animosity toward my client. He's not a credible witness." The prosecutor was ready. "Mr. Jackson has direct evidence that corroborates the testimony of Cassie Ventura," she said. "We ask that he be allowed to present it." The judge considered for a moment, then nodded. I'll allow it. But Mr. Jackson, you will stick to the facts. No grandstanding. 50 Cent leaned forward, his eyes locked on the prosecutor. I'm here to tell the truth, he said. I've got something you all need to hear. The prosecutor nodded. Go ahead, Mr. Jackson. What evidence do you have? 50 Cent pulled out a small USB drive and handed it to the bailiff, who passed it to the prosecutor. This is an audio recording, 50 Cent said. It's from one of Diddy's freak-off parties back in the early 2000s. A former employee of his gave it to me, and it proves everything Cassie said is true. Diddy's legal team jumped up again. Objection, Your Honor. This recording hasn't been authenticated. We don't even know if it's admissible. The judge raised a hand. I'll listen to the recording first. If it's relevant, I'll allow it. Proceed, Mr. Jackson. The prosecutor plugged the USB into a laptop connected to the courtroom's audio system. The room fell silent as the recording began to play. It was Diddy's voice, unmistakable. He was giving orders, his tone sharp and commanding. You're going to do what I say, Diddy's voice crackled through the speakers. I don't care if you're comfortable or not. This is my show. You're here for me. The audio went on for another minute, capturing more of Diddy's demands. It was exactly what Cassie had described. Coercion, control, a man who didn't take no for an answer. When the recording stopped, the silence in the courtroom was deafening. 50 Cent spoke again, his voice steady. That's what Cassie was talking about, he said. That's the Diddy I've known for years. He doesn't care about anyone but himself. He thinks he's untouchable, but not anymore. The prosecutor turned to the judge. Your Honor, this recording directly supports Ms. Ventura's testimony about the nature of these events. It shows a pattern of coercive behavior exactly as she described. Diddy's attorney was on his feet again. Your Honor, this is prejudicial. My client can't defend himself against an unverified recording. We don't even know the context. The judge wasn't having it. The recording is relevant, he said. It matches the testimony we've already heard. I'm admitting it as evidence. Mr. Jackson, do you have anything else to add? 50 Cent shook his head. I've said what I came to say. Cassie's telling the truth. That recording proves it, that's all. He stepped down from the stand, his part done. But the impact of his words in that recording was just beginning. The prosecutor called more witnesses in the days that followed, each one building on the foundation 50 Cent had laid. A former party planner testified about the strict rules Diddy enforced at his events. A security guard recalled seeing women leave those parties in tears, too scared to speak up. And Cassie's testimony, once questioned, now had the weight of undeniable proof behind it. Diddy's defense team tried to fight back. They called their own witnesses, people who claimed the parties were consensual, that Diddy was a generous host who never crossed a line. But the jury wasn't buying it. The recording kept playing in their minds, Diddy's voice echoing through every counter-argument. Outside the courtroom, the world was watching. 50 Cent didn't stop with his testimony. He went on Instagram Live that same night, speaking directly to his millions of followers. Y'all heard what I brought to the table, he said. That recording, it's real. Cassie ain't lying. Diddy thought he could get away with it, but not this time. We're standing with her. The internet exploded. Hashtags started trending. Hashtag Justice for Cassie. Hashtag Diddy Trial. Hashtag 50 Cent Speaks. News outlets picked up the story, running headlines about 50 Cent's bombshell evidence. Public opinion, already leaning against Diddy, turned into a tidal wave. Protesters gathered outside the courthouse, holding signs that read, "Believe survivors" and "Diddy is done." Inside the courtroom, the prosecution kept pushing. They used the recording to tie Diddy's actions to the racketeering and sex trafficking charges. They showed how he'd built a network of enablers, employees, friends, even security, who helped him carry out his schemes. The freak-off parties weren't just wild nights. They were a system, a way for Diddy to exert power and control. Diddy took the stand again a few days later, trying to salvage his case. That recording, it's not what it seems, he said. I was just hosting a party. People were having fun. I never forced anyone to do anything. But the prosecutor was relentless. You're saying the women at these parties had a choice? She asked. You're saying they could say no to you? Diddy hesitated just for a moment. Of course they could, he said. I'm not a monster. The prosecutor didn't let up. Then why do we have audio of you telling people what to do, saying you don't care if they're comfortable? Why does that match Cassie Ventura's testimony so perfectly? Diddy didn't have an answer. He stammered, his composure slipping. I I don't know, he said. Maybe it's taken out of context. The jury didn't buy it. They'd heard enough. When the trial moved into its final phase, the prosecution rested their case with confidence. Diddy's team made their closing arguments, but the damage was done. The recording, Cassie's testimony, the other witnesses, it all painted a picture of a man who thought he was above the law. The jury deliberated for 3 days. When they came back, the courtroom was packed, the tension unbearable. The foreperson stood, holding the verdict. On the charge of racketeering conspiracy, she said, we find the defendant, Sean Combs, guilty. A gasp went through the room. The foreperson continued. On the charge of sex trafficking, we find the defendant guilty. Diddy's head dropped, his hands clenching into fists. His legal team sat in stunned silence. The judge thanked the jury, then turned to Diddy. Mr. Combs, you'll remain in custody pending sentencing, he said. This court is adjourned. The fallout was immediate. News outlets ran breaking news alerts. Diddy found guilty in sex trafficking case. Social media erupted, with people celebrating the verdict as a win for survivors everywhere. Cassie, who'd been watching the trial closely, released a statement through her attorney. I'm grateful for everyone who believed me, she said. This isn't just my victory, it's for every person who's ever been silenced. Thank you to everyone who spoke up, especially Curtis Jackson. His courage made a difference. 50 Cent didn't waste any time. He posted on Instagram that night a single photo of himself outside the courthouse, captioned with 3 words, Told y'all, game over. His followers flooded the comments, praising him for standing up for Cassie, for using his platform to bring the truth to light. Diddy's empire, once untouchable, was in ruins. His businesses started pulling away, his endorsements canceled. The music industry, which had stayed silent for so long, began to speak out. Artists who'd once collaborated with him distanced themselves, issuing statements of support for Cassie and the other victims. For Cassie, the verdict was a moment of closure. She'd spent years living in the shadow of Diddy's control, but now she was free. She started working with organizations that support survivors of abuse, using her story to help others heal. And 50 Cent, the man who'd once been known for his beefs and his trolling, found himself in a new light. He'd taken a stand, and it had made a difference.